Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever Battlegrounds card reveal stream. We have a big surprise for you and we're revealing a lot more than just cards today. But before we get into that, let's do some introductions. My name is Mitchell Loewen, I'm the lead designer on Battlegrounds, and today we have a special guest with us.
I'm Shadybunny. I've made like 4 or 5 Hearthstone videos before. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, so great. I'm super excited to talk about all the new stuff today, but we're going to be announcing a brand new system called the Timewarped Tavern. It's a completely new shop where the tavern gets taken over by Nosdormu, and it's going to happen on turns 6 and 9. When you go to this special tavern, you'll get to buy brand new cards that you can't get anywhere else, and you'll be spending a brand new currency in order to get those cards.
I would love to see how this all works exactly.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So as I mentioned, on turns 6 and 9, you'll enter the Timewarped Tavern. The Timewarped Tavern, as you notice, has a special visual effect around the screen, so you've got that sound effect, very similar to Rewind if you've played with the new constructed set. You'll also have the bartender replaced by Nosdormu as your special guest for this shop, as well as you'll see options of various Timewarp cards to buy. They all have a special effect on them that's kind of this like sun ray special effect on them to help tell them apart. You might also notice that the card art on these is actually very similar to existing cards, and that's because a lot of Timewarp cards are actually variants or changed alternate versions of existing cards. So we have this effect on them to help tell them apart in case you have multiple both Timewarp cards and their normal versions on the same board.
Right. I look at this and it's very familiar, but one thing stands out. I see a Shudderwalk hero power in the shop.
Yeah.
Can I buy that?
You absolutely can buy that. So in addition to having minions, there's some other spells as well as hero powers that you're going to be able to buy from this special shop.
That's amazing. Now, how do I buy these?
Yeah, so the main way that you buy these is using a special currency called Chronums. So on turn 6 and 9, when you enter the Timewarped Tavern, you're going to get 2 Chronum in order to buy whatever cards that you want. Most cards are going to cost 1 or 2, so you can either say buy 1 2 cost or 2 1 cost based on what's going to fit your comp best. For the most part, you're only ever going to have 2, but there are some sneaky ways. You might notice in the bottom corner they actually had 3 Chronums. There are some ways to get some extra, but for the most part, you're going to always have 2 both times you enter the tavern.
Now, Mitchell, I noticed that their hand was full of blood gems, but they still were able to buy the Timewarped Tavern cards. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, so when you're in the Timewarped Tavern, you actually have hand protection. So what that means is if your hand has 10 cards and you enter the Timewarped Tavern, it'd be really sad if you couldn't get the cool cards. So you can buy the cards even while your hand is full and get them added on. And once you leave the tavern and you enter the normal, once you leave the Timewarped Tavern and enter the normal tavern, then you'll be able to play your cards out and your hand size will go back to normal.
That's amazing. I love that.
It's really nice. But yeah, that's a bit about the shop. Let's get into talking about the minions now. So as I mentioned, there are a ton of Timewarp cards coming in the Timewarp Tavern. There are over 75 unique cards. These are both minions and spells, as well as the hero powers, as I mentioned, that you'll be able to buy in the first Timewarp Tavern, which is the minor Timewarp Tavern. And there's even more cards in the major Timewarp Tavern, which we'll get to soon. And again, a lot of these are going to look pretty familiar because a lot of these are variants or riffs on existing cards, both from Battlegrounds, both present and past, as well as some cards from Constructed that if you've been playing that mode, you might notice some familiar faces.
Now, you said there was more than 75. I only see 12, Mitchell. What's up with that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of cards, and we can't show every single one here today, but we're going to highlight some of the ones that we think are really exciting. But on top of that, you'll be able to go check out the blog post with some more information, as well as go check out the full card library, which will be available on Play Hearthstone, where you can see all of the cards early, so you can check out all the ones both that we talk about here right now, as well as ones that we didn't have time for.
Okay, so which ones are we going to talk about in particular?
Yeah, so let's jump into a couple of them here. So first off, let's talk about Timewarp Boar. So Timewarp Boar might be familiar if you've played way back in the day with United Stormwind with Elwyn Boar. So this one is whenever every 3rd friendly Timewarp Boar dies, you're going to get a random golden beast.
I can reborn this?
Yeah, absolutely. You
Okay.
can reborn it. You could use Terran's hero power on it. Whatever you want to be able to try and get additional deaths on your boar. But the payoff is those golden beasts, and you can reproc this as many times as you want. Like you could have it die 3 times, 6 times, 9 times, and you'll still get your golden minions.
That seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We also have Timewarp Upstart, which is after the tavern is refreshed. You double the health of the rightmost minion. Now, there's a bit of a rightmost theme in elementals, which we'll get into later when we talk about them. But there's a lot of fun synergies you can do with this, either if it lands lucky on like a magnetic mech, and you could then magnetize it, or you could just eat it with a demon. whatever you want.
I was gonna say, I immediately think of Urzel when I see this card, where I just make a huge minion, buy all the rest, and just eat the big guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. I also see that we have Pagel. This was one of my favorite cards back when it was in.
Yeah, so we wanted to do a time-warped version of Pagel because Pagel's a pretty cool card. So this one is now, once per combat, when it attacks and kills a minion, you're going to get a triple reward. And that's going to be based on whatever tier you're on. So if you're on tier 4, you'll be able to discover a tier. If you're on tier 4, you'll discover tier 5. And that'll change, obviously, as you change your tier.
I can already imagine hitting into a Taunt Divine Shield with this and just having a horrible time.
Yeah. So you'll have to make sure that you're clever with your positioning,
Okay.
or maybe you need to give it some extra buffs.
Some mind games, maybe.
Yeah, just to make sure that it's going to be able to get those kills. But if you do, the payoff is really high.
Now, Mitchell, you might know that Strikeall is one of my favorite cards, and I see that you can farm Strikeall with one of our next cards.
Yeah, you can. So Time Warp Rewinder is Avenge 6, really high revenge, but it's a really good payoff of increasing your maximum gold by 1. So if you can especially figure out a way to keep this protected, so put it in the back, hide it behind some taunts, maybe you can give it Divine Shield in some way. And then if you've got lots of little tokens that can die, you can get a lot of gold out of this.
Yeah, procking this more than once per turn would be amazing.
Yeah.
I will definitely try to do that.
For sure.
I also see we have Winner, and there's some modifications that were made, because earlier it was a difficult card to proc, to say the least.
Yeah, I'd say like Travel Winner on the whole was like a fan favorite card. There's a lot of people who really liked it. But for the Time Warp version, we really juiced it up. So it actually has a couple different buffs. Not only is it bigger, obviously the normal one I think was 2/2, and now it's 6/6. But we also gave it stealth, so it's a lot less likely to get sniped. But then on top of that, it doesn't actually remove itself when it gives you the triple reward.
Okay.
So if you manage to get this to survive, you could make it survive again and again, and you might be able to get multiple triple rewards out of this card.
Okay, that's super snowbally, and I'm going to love playing with that.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a look at some of the minor Time Warp cards. Let's actually talk about some of the major Time Warp cards. So there are a ton of these ones too. There are over 90 different major Time Warp cards, and these are including both minions and spells. Again, we can't highlight all of them, but we're going to show some ones that I really enjoy. That I think
I'm going to have to make so many videos on this, Mitchell. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, you're going to be making videos for a long time. But yeah, just like the last one, we're going to pull out some highlights of ones that we really enjoy. So the first one that we have to talk about is Time Warp Mystic. This is very similar to the existing Mystic, which you would sell it and you would increase your tavern spell buffs by 1/1. Now you have to sell whatever Murlocs you want. Except probably not this one. You probably keep this one on
Yeah,
your board.
unlikely. That's.
But
okay.
whatever ones you want to cycle, you can use those to get your tavern spells.
So Flurg is going to love this Tad Primal Fin brand. That's
all of those are going to work fantastic.
That's going to be a good time.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to cycling a bunch with that.
Yeah.
I also see that Poet has some buffs to it.
Yeah. So main normal Poet still exists. Persistent Poet is still in the pool, but there's a Time Warp version, and for this one, it's going to apply to all of your dragons, including itself. So you don't have to worry as much about the positioning. You can just hide in the back to keep it safe, and then all of your dragons are going to permanently keep those stats and bonus keywords.
That's such a crazy quality of life buff where
Yeah.
you just put it down and you're fine.
Yeah, it's a lot more flexible and makes positioning a lot easier, especially for some of the other things we're going to be talking about. Positioning gets a little bit tricky, so this can work out really well with
That's
that.
great for dragons.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have fan favorite Nomi. Everyone loves Nomi. Chat loves Nomi. Except what this one does is you still play elementals, but it buffs all minions in the tavern. So you could use this to buff and use with other strategies like, say, demons, and then you could eat all those minions in the shop. But yeah, it's basically just a big juiced up Nomi.
Yeah, this looks like you're just going to play Bran, have 2 Urzels, and they're going to get very large.
Yeah. And if you want to do more things with demons, you can also use the new Time Warp Kill Jaden. This is another one of those warped cards based on a constructed card. And this one is the Tavern offers 2 extra demons with +7/+7 after each refresh, and this upgrades each turn. So on the turn you play it, they'll have 7/7. Then the turn after they'll have 14/14, 21/21, etc.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of Chinvala's Buddy, where you can really force elementals, and with this you can really force demons.
Yeah, and it can be great both for just finding minions that fit your comp, and then they've got this nice bonus on them. But once you've got your comp online, it's just extra stats for all those consume effects.
Okay, I also see that we have Time Warped Scout, and it looks really exciting.
Yeah, I really like this card. Patient Scout is one of my personal favorite cards. But this Time Warp version is when you sell it, you get 1 random tier 7 minion, and this improves each turn.
So 2 7s, 3 7s.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can keep going all the way to 10 if you want. If you'll survive. but you could.
My dream was 7, Mitchell. I think
I
10
think
is excessive. That
probably
is
a
like,
little more
that's
reasonable.
a problem. Okay.
But in addition to adding this card, we also have some new Tier 7 minions that are coming along. We mostly designed these to try and add a little bit of extra spice and novelty to some of the types where their Tier 7 minion could use some love. There were some ones that we kept around. So, for example, the Demon is still around from Tier 7. But for the other ones, we tried to highlight on some minions that we thought could be a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
Are there any here that you're particularly excited about?
I was going to say the Murloc one looks like it has a lot of potential, to say the least.
Yeah. So for Future Fin, it's at the end of your turn. You give this minion stats to the leftmost minion in your hand. This is obviously very strong with hand buffs, but you could also use some other things like the Mutinous spell to channel the Devour to be able to get extra stats back on, or to grab the minion that was in your hand that you buffed and then put those back onto the Future Fin. There's some shenanigans.
Repeat. Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely shenanigans with this card. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with these.
And you can combo this with a Drakari.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That is. So when hand buff Murlocs was really popular with Briny, that was already so good, where you had to cast all the spells on this, and this will just make it huge, and then you can do that every turn.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff that you can do with this. There's also some other hand buff cards in the set when we get to Murlocs that can also work very well.
So will it be easy to get 7 drops or not?
Typically not. The main ways that you're going to get your Tier 7 minions are either off of Time Warp Scout or off of Thorum. Thorum is still in the game and can still let you get Tier 7 minions. But other than that, they're going to be pretty rare.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to buy Scout when I see it then.
Oh, for sure.
That's my shot. Okay, so what else do we have, Mitchell?
Yeah, so we got lots of other stuff to talk about, including some new heroes. So in addition to the Timewarped Tavern, we also have 2 new heroes that we're going to be adding to the game. And let's talk about the first one, Murozond. So for Murozond, this is similar to some of our other quote-unquote system heroes like Marin or Buttons or Sire. And what you'll get to do is on turn 8, you'll get to visit the Major Time Warp, which is that second shop of cards. And this is in addition to the normal Major Time Warp that you get to go to. So if you're playing as Murozond, you'll be able to get to go to the Timewarped Tavern 3 times per game.
So 1 turn early and then again on night.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is also a hero that's going to be sticking around, so even if we rotate out the system and bring in some new stuff, Murozond's still going to be around, so you're going to have access to Time Warp cards all the time.
This feels like you're going to want to play it similar like Buttons, where you got to be careful in the early game because you don't really have a hero power, and then you get a massive boost later in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also some fun strategies to get with them, because normally you're only going to have 2 Chronum in each of those shops, so you can probably only buy 1 2-cost card. Yeah. But with Murozond, you could buy 2, and then the next shop buy another 2 costs, and you could get some synergies you normally wouldn't have access to.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's Chromie all about?
Yeah, so Chromie is actually all about spells. So what Chromie is going to do is for 0 mana, they will refresh the tavern with new tavern spells. You might recognize this effect. This is actually an existing Tier 6 spell that you can do. But Chromie gets to do it every turn for free.
What this reminds me of is just Wisdom Ball, where you roll all the spells. Because you just hit the button, it's Chromie, you get all the spells,
Yeah, there's also a lot of fun economy plays you can do in the early game. You can do things like, similar to like old Lubber strategies, you could try to refresh specifically on Tier 2, where there's a lot of really good economy spells, and you could use that to give yourself extra gold to be able to either power level or build up your board.
Okay, so you mentioned spells. Are there a lot of new spells?
Yeah, we've actually got a lot of new spells coming in this tavern. This update, let's jump into some of those. So some of these we'll dive into more when we talk about the specific types, but there's still some other ones that are going to be available in every lobby. So one of those is Search Through Time, which is a 2-cost Tier 2 spell where you discover a minion of your tier and then you lock it in your hand for a turn.
Oh, so that's almost like Chef's Choice Maiev style.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it can be really good because in the early game, you could use it to kind of smooth out your curve. You know, if you have 5 gold, you could buy a minion in this spell, and that works really well. But in the late game, you could use it to try and dig for specific Tier 5 or 6 minions that you really want to be able to put your comp together.
Yeah, so especially good if you're above damage cap, where you're sure to live another turn.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other spells that we have, this is a Cool Bore specific spell, which is Blood Gem Barrage. This text box is a little funky, but it's after the tavern has refreshed this game, give its minions 1/1 worth of blood gems. Now, it's a bit of a mouthful, but what it means is after you play it, every refresh, they're going to have +1/+1. Now, this spell is special because it gets benefits from both tavern spell buffs as well as blood gem buffs.
Oh, so if my gems have buffs to it, like let's say 10/10, and I play this, my shop gets 10/10.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I would love to see how that works out in the specific type.
Yeah, once we get into Quill Board, we'll really dive into that one. But there's definitely some shenanigans you can do with that one. All right, let's talk about all the new minions we've got coming to Battlegrounds this season. We're going to do our best to cover as many of them as we can, but there are a lot of new cards in this set. There's almost 50 new minions, and there's like 170, 180 new Time Warp cards, so there's just a lot to cover. So we're going to do the best we can to cover as much of it and show some cool highlights. But just as a reminder, you'll be able to check out today's patch notes on Play Hearthstone, as well as the full card library right after the stream. So you'll be able to check out all those cards and anything you would get a chance to touch on.
Okay. So what's the first new type we're going to take a look at?
Yeah, so for first type, let's start with Quillbore. So for each of these minion segments on our stream, we're going to pull up a whole bunch of minions. These are all the minions that are going to be in the pool for this season. And we're going to just highlight and focus on a couple of them. But if you want to take a moment to look at all these, by all means. But we're going to just highlight some specific ones that we think are cool. And in this case, we're going to talk about Quillbore a little bit. Now, Quillbore's got a couple different themes going on. They've still got some Rally, they've still got some Divine Shield, but their big new thing is Blood Gem Barrage. So as we highlighted with the spell section, this is a new tavern spell that will cast blood gems essentially on the minions in the tavern. But there's a lot of different ways that you can get this spell. You can get it off the Briarback Drummer, you could get it from the Razorfin Flapper, you could just like buy it normally.
Okay. I already see you could combo this with Macaw, Titus, and by the time the combat is over, you have 10 of these in your hand.
Absolutely. So that's one thing that you could do to really get lots of stats.
That's a big shot.
And then once you get all of those on the minions, obviously you need to do something with those stats, right?
Yeah, how do we take advantage of that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. One of them is the new minion Trench Fighter, which is going to give you that gem confiscation spell that lets you like steal gems off of other minions. So you can buy a big minion from the shop, steal its gems, then sell it away. You could also, of course, eat it using something like Channel to Devour, but one of the big ways to do it is going to be Fellbore. So Fellbore is a minion from the past, which is a Quillbore demon that after you cast spells, it will eat minions from the shop, and it's coming back this season, and it's a lot more powerful.
And because gem confiscation steals from 2, you could buy 2 and then steal at the same time.
Absolutely,
Oh, wow. Yeah,
It works really well.
That's great.
So we're going to roll a clip now to highlight some of the new cards. So as I mentioned, there's Fellbore coming back. So after you cast 3 spells, you can consume a minion from the tavern. This is a familiar face. We also have Paint Smudger coming back. This one's actually really strong compared to the last version, but it's after you cast a tavern spell, you're going to play a blood gem on 3 friendly minions. And again, those blood gem barrages count as tavern spells, so it's an easy way to trigger this card.
Oh, wow.
We also have Time Warp Twirler, which is one of the Time Warp cards, which is after you play 2 blood gems on this, it's going to cast blood gem barrage. So it's another way that you can get additional triggers of it.
So, yeah.
So as I mentioned before, this will benefit from both blood gem buffs as well as tavern spell buffs. So you could use something like Intrepid Botanist, or you could use something like Moonbacon Jazzer, and both of those are going to make your blood gem barrages bigger.
That is so good because with Quillbore, it really feels like if you don't get Piper early, if you don't get the Jazz or Rylak setup, it's really hard to play it because your gems aren't big. And now you can still play Quillbore if you have some spell bursts.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility for how you want to do it. You could do it either way. You could do it both ways, honestly. You could do both the blood gem buff and the tavern spell buff and do some sort of hybrid.
Right. And then just get really big shots.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay.
Those all work really well together. It can give you a ton of stats. And then this is in addition, of course, to the other strategies you could be doing with Quillbore, but this is definitely the new angle. And it's a pretty exciting one.
I can't wait to try it.
Yeah.
So what are some other types?
Yeah, so let's go on to the next type. We'll talk about mechs. So for mechs, their big new thing that they're doing this set is volumizers. So volumizers are a new tier 2 minion. There's 3 versions of them. There's a green one, a blue one, and a red one. But they're basically all very similar. It's the first time they magnetize, they're going to permanently improve themselves and all other volumizers. So what that means, if I magnetize one of them, and let's say it started at the 2/2 for the green volumizer, after you magnetize it, now all your volumizers are going to have +1/+1 for the rest of the game. So if you can generate and magnetize a whole bunch of these, they're all going to grow.
So your blue one now is also +1/+1.
Exactly.
It's not just the green ones. Okay. I see that the wording is also very specific on these volumizers.
They are very specific.
Okay. And I assume this is because of stacking, where you could put a lot of them and then magnetize it again, and you would get way too much value.
You know, when we were first working with this, what happened is you could magnetize a bunch of them to a minion, golden it, put it in your hand, and then play it again, and it would re-trigger it. And that was a little bit
too good.
A little too good.
Yeah.
So these are just going to work the first time. They do work also when you play it. So if you just bought a volumizer, you can just play it on the board. You don't have to magnetize it, and it'll still trigger.
So you can just sell it back.
Yeah, you can just do that.
Okay.
And there's lots of different ways that you can get these. Obviously, these are also minions in the shop. They actually show up at a slightly different appearance rate than normal tier 2 minions. If you remember back in the day when we had Ziliacs, that there were like technically 5 or
Yes.
6 of the card, but they really only took up like 2 or 3 slots. This is the same kind of deal. They kind of count as 2 minions, even though there's 3 of them.
So you see a lot of volumizers, but not as much of the individual ones.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then you can use that with a bunch of other cards, like you could generate them off the conveyor construct, the metal dispenser, or the auto accelerator, are all different ways you could add these to your hand.
Oh, okay.
And then you can use those to get your engine going.
And when you magnetize them in combat, you still get permanent buffs.
Exactly. And the main way that you're able to do that is off the Apexis Guardian, which when it dies, it's going to magnetize volumizers to your other mechs.
So again, you can run Macaw and Titus and get.
You absolutely could.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's going to be a lot.
So we
of
actually
fun.
got a clip of how some of this interaction works. So as you see, this is a board that you could set up. You can find the volumizers, as I mentioned, in the tavern. This is one that's already been played a couple of times. But you can play that minion and magnetize it to whatever you want. For example, this is one of the new minions, the Junk Jouster, that will let you buff all your minions after something's magnetized to it. So it's a decent target if you want to throw stuff onto it. You can also use things like the Auto Assembler. You've got the Apexis Guardian, which is very powerful if you have a Titus, as well as the Conveyor Constructs. There's other ways to generate it. Also synergizes with Titus. So Titus is going to be very strong with mechs this season.
Yeah, and he also gets big if you're magnetizing it on the Jouster because your board gets buffed.
Yeah. There's also some Time Warp cards that can help you generate it. There's Time Warp Steamer, for example, that's going to give you 2 volumizers at the end of every turn. So you could do that with maybe like a Drakari build if you wanted to generate them that way, and then maybe use something like the end of turn buffing all based on how many magnetizations you've done this game. That's another comp shape you could do for this.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a fan favorite because it feels very Pogo Hopper-esque, and people love playing that.
Yeah,
so.
I think for me this is one of my favorite comps this season. I think it's super fun to play with.
That's totally fair. Okay, so what else do we have?
Yeah, so let's move on to Beasts. So Beasts, we actually are bringing back a mechanic from the past. We're bringing back self-damage, which you might remember. But we're bringing some new cards along with some returning favorites for how you build this. The main thing that you're going to be able to do this season is you're going to be able to damage your minions during the tavern phase and get those benefits.
Oh, okay.
So one of the biggest cards that's going to be relevant for that is the new Rabid Panther card. And what that one will do is every time you play a beast, it's going to damage all your beasts and give them a buff.
So finally I can run branded beasts to get more
Exactly.
money and get more beasts.
Yeah, and to help you with the brand, we
final
also have
piece.
Hunting Tiger Shark, which will let you discover a beast. This is actually typically stronger than most of our discover effects. Usually for minion types, we don't do like a Battlecry discover until like tier 5-ish. But beasts really don't have much economy. So this is a way that we kind of gave them something that's a little bit stronger. So this card's really good.
Okay.
But this is definitely a way that you can play it, generate a beast, play that beast, generate it again. And you've got some other payoffs that work with it, like the Hardy Orca, which is just a good solid minion for just generalized tempo, kind of similar to like a Spawn of N'Zoth, if you remember that from back in the day.
Yeah.
But you can also synergize it by damaging it during the tavern phase, and then those buffs are permanent.
That looks so good. Tier 3 as a 1/6 taunt, I would buy this every time.
Yeah,
This looks
it's
very
pretty
fun.
durable. It's likely to live 2 hits, or get hit twice.
Yeah.
And again, it's whenever it gets damaged, so it doesn't need to survive that second hit. It's still going to give the buff.
Right, and it's not even just beasts, it'll buff everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
So we also got a clip for that. There's so again, there's the Rabid Panther as an example. This is whenever you play a beast, you're going to give your minions 3/3 and deal the damage to them. 3/3 is also a pretty large buff, so that alone is pretty powerful before you even get into the damage synergy. So you can use something like your Rabid Tiger Shark. You can pick up whatever minion you want. This will work with all of your other self-damage stuff, like your Iridescent Sky Laser will work with it. Trigor will work with it. The Orca we mentioned will work with it. Lots of different ways to get your buffs. There's also the Time Warp Cleft Hoof that's on this board, which at the end of your turn damages all your minions and gives them a buff. So that's another way that you could do it. Maybe combine that with a Drakari, and you get lots of access to it. And that's in addition to just the buffs you can get normally in combat, using other ways of, AoE damage or just minions hitting into each other.
That's going to make for some huge Trigors, because that's what I remember from self-damage beasts, just one unkillable Trigor.
Oh yeah, Trigor can get very, very large as well.
Okay, awesome. What's the next type, Mitchell?
Yeah, so next time we're going to talk about is demons. So demons, there's actually mostly returning cards. There are a couple new ones, but most of them are returning. We're bringing back our self-damage to your hero instead of to your minions with Wrathweaver, who's actually a demon now.
So good.
Which should make things a lot
love
easier to
that.
make that comp work. But you also have your rewind effects like Soul Rewinder. We also have Ashen Corruptor coming back as ways to rewind that damage so that you can stay alive. Lord of Ruins is also now going to work with all of this, because in addition to dealing damage to enemy minions with your demons, dealing damage to your hero also counts. So you can use it with Lord of Ruins, another capstone piece.
So that's permanent Lord of Ruins buffs.
Yeah, if you trigger it during the shop, it'd be permanent.
Okay, that's a huge part of it.
You've also got some new cards that you can do that are going to help the consume side of it. You've got the Aranasi Alchemist, which is Taunt, Reborn, Death Rattle, give minions in the tavern +1 health this game. So it's a nice way that you can get some extra health scaling, which works really well with trying to get multiple hits for all of those damage payoff cards.
That looks amazing on tier 3.
It's very good.
I will love buying
It's a very good card.
Okay.
It's also nice, even if you kind of keep it closer to the end game, if you golden it, you add a Titus, you can get some extra stats out of it that way. But then there's also the Flaming Enforcer, which is a dual type with both elementals and demons, which at the end of your turn is going to consume the highest health minion in the tavern.
Oh, so it's like the imp, but he can't miss.
Exactly. You're always going to get to eat the exact minion that you want.
That's
or
perfect.
don't want if it's something really cool that you throw, so be a little careful. But we're going to show a little highlight here. Again, there's lots of different ways you could buff the tavern, one of those being the Aranasi Alchemist. But we've got some extra payoff cards to be able to do something about all the stats you put on there. One of those is a new Timewarped card, which is Timewarped Shivara, which is Divine Shield. Whenever a minion is consumed, this gains its stats. So if you eat something with the Urzul, this will also get the stats. If you eat it you can use a Mind Muck, that'll also give the stats here. There's lots of different ways you can do various
Felbats? It'll gain all the Felbats?
It would gain all of the Felbat stats.
Oh.
So obviously, any way that you buff the tavern using something like Elemental, again, there's more ways to buff it than just the Aranasi. You can do the more quote-unquote traditional ways if you want to buff it that way too. But those are a lot of extra stats you can getting onto the Shivara. On top of that, it has Divine Shield, so it's a very, very powerful card.
I was going to say that's Urzul Premium, like
Yeah.
premium. That looks amazing.
One thing that I like about this card is, this is one of the things that we tried to do a little bit in the Timewarped Tavern. Some cards are doing things that are a little off-theme, right? Divine Shield is not normally a thing that we give to demons. It's a lot more of like a mech thing or a dragon thing. But this is a way that we could splash some keywords and effects into other types that normally wouldn't have access to it. So there's some cards you might see that you're like, wow, I can't believe that this is this type. That normally wouldn't have it.
So that looks really cool for demons.
Yeah.
So what else do we have, Mitchell?
The next one we got is dragons. And for dragons, they've got a whole theme built around whelps. If you've played in the past with like, I guess like the Scally comp, if you remember those.
Scallywag Pirates, yeah.
Those can be very fun. This is a similar kind of comp to that. So you're going to have various minions that will summon 3/3 whelps that attack immediately. You've got the tier 1 Twilight Hatchling that when it dies, it'll summon the whelp. You've got a Whelp Watcher that, as a rally, will summon a 3/3 to attack the target first. And then you also have the Twilight Broodmother, which will summon 2 more hatchlings, which will then summon more whelps.
So it's a dragon inside of a dragon inside of a dragon.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just dragons all the way
That
down.
looks great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can use those combined with a bunch of different cards to really get a lot of different payoffs. We actually got a great clip of a combat for one of these. There's lots of different ways to build this board, so this is just an example of the kind of stuff you could do. You could run it alongside a Titus to be able to get extra summons.
Of course.
You could run it with a Twilight Watcher, so that every time something attacks, they get the buffs. In this case, we have the Timewarped Poet we talked about earlier, so all of the dragons are to keep those stats permanently. And then you also have the new dragon Stunt Drake, which, after its Avenge procs, will give its attack to another dragon. And if you've got the Poet, it'll keep that permanently.
So that's really your payoff for summoning all these dragons.
Yeah. So you definitely want something like that. You could also use other payoffs, like there's the Spirit Drake, which will generate tavern spells. So you could also use that to get the spells, and then use those to buff your Stunt Drake to make it more powerful.
Okay. But there's no Khadgar this time.
There is no Khadgar.
Okay.
Learn that lesson.
Okay, Mitchell, what's our next type?
Yeah, so the next type we're going to talk about is elementals. So as you might have noticed earlier, there's a bit of a rightmost theme going on here. So in addition to being able to just buff the whole tavern if you want to, that's still fine. You now are going to be able to go very tall and make one minion in the tavern huge. So you can use things like Waveling, the Engine Blazer, or Air Revenant, which could generate Easterly Winds. And all of these spells and cards work similarly, where they're going to make your rightmost minion gain stats after each refresh.
Okay.
So you could combine all these, and normally if you're just buffing the whole tavern, maybe you get it at 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, whatever. But with these are much larger buffs. They're starting at like 3, 3, or 6, 6, or 5, 5. And you could easily get your rightmost minion to be like 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 100, 100, especially in the late game.
So is this the first time where elementals don't have to go to demons to start getting the payoff where they can eat those stats?
You could definitely do that a little bit. We have something like the Flaming Enforcer, which is a dual type, so that's one way that you can do it. But you can also use something like Acid Rainfall, which is after you refresh 3 times, you're going to gain the stats of the rightmost minion in the tavern. Now this is gain, not consume, so you could also still buy it afterwards.
You can get both.
We actually got a clip for that one, because this combo is actually fairly powerful. So for example, you've got your Acid Rainfall in play. After it refreshes 3 times, you're going to get those stats. You've got the Air Revenant in play that's going to generate your Easterly Winds. And again, those Easterly Winds are going to buff the tavern. And then you also have stuff like the Engine Blazer, sorry, that will also buff your minions. So after you do this refresh, you can already see how that minion's larger. We've gotten all the way up to 48, 45, which is pretty good. You can play your Easterly Winds then, get them even larger. That's also a tavern spell, so tavern spell buffs are also going to work with that. You could also just generate or buy it in the shop. And then you could also use something like Timewarped Upstart, which is going to double the health of the rightmost minion. And you combine all of those together, and you can get a very, very large very large Acid Rainfall out of that.
And you always hit.
You always hit the one that you want.
That's
and if you've got something like that dual type elemental demon, you're always going to consume that rightmost because it's probably your biggest one.
So this is a little specific, but what I can already see for this is Rylak with refreshing and brand.
Absolutely.
Roll. Wow,
Yeah,
that's gonna be
and getting those extra refreshes is going to be super valuable here. We also have a returning tavern spell that it's, I believe, leaf through the pages, which makes your next 2, you get 2 free refreshes.
Yes.
So that's another way that you get access, in addition to just using Refreshing Anomaly.
That's so fun.
Yeah, there's tons of ways that you can do it.
All right, Mitchell, what else do we have?
So next we're going to talk about Murlocs. So Murlocs have a bit of a hand buff theme going on. We've got a new Tier 2 Expert Aviator, which is just another way to get your Murlocs out of your hand. Technically, you can use it on whatever minion you want, so you could put Leroy or something, but...
we're doing that again.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great.
But you've also got other payoffs to help you there. You've got the Costume Enthusiast, which is Divine Shield. At the start of combat, gain the stats of the highest attack minion in your hand. And then you also have Dramalock, which, when it dies, is going to give 2 other friendly Murlocs the stats of the highest attack minion in your hand. So if you've got something in your hand that you've been buffing all game, be it a Green counter, a Flighty Scout, whatever you want, you could then use these minions to get those spots into immediate tempo.
Can I use an Amalgam and a Poet to perma those stats?
Yeah, you could.
Oh my god, that's gonna
It's
be
probably really good.
good. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
So here's a clip to show you an example of what you could do. So we've got the Costume Enthusiast in play. That's going to be triggering in combat. We also have a couple Time Warp cards. We've got Time Warp Squallfin as example, which is after you play a Murloc, you give minions in your hand and board +2/+1. So a nice APM angle if you want to get your buffs in hand. You could have something like a Bream counter that you hold on to get nice and get all of those buffs onto it. We've also changed some of our cards like Begurgle, and now also buffs the minions in your hand. So it's another way that you can get the buffs there.
Huge. Okay.
And then if you combine all those together, you can then go into combat. Maybe you get a Titus. Maybe you use other things like Burglar to get more stats. But once that Dramalock dies, it's going to give the stats to your other Murlocs. And then you could use the Aviator to summon it from your hand. And even if you've already summoned your stuff, it still gives a little incidental buff. So it still gives you something.
Okay.
But yeah, it can be very, very powerful.
And we still have base skill on top of all of this?
Yep, you still have base skill is another way to get them in.
Wow, so after getting the buffs, we can also still pull.
Yeah, it still has the normal hand summoning restrictions where
Yes.
each minion can only be summoned once. So you can't like put like 3 aviators with base skills and summon the same thing 6 times. You'll need a bunch of different minions, but still a lot of different ways to get them out of your hand.
I'm gonna have so much fun trying that out. Okay,
Yeah.
Mitchell, what's our next type?
The next type is Naga. For Naga, we actually have a bit of like sort of a rally theme going on. So we've got Profound Thinker as you get a random tavern spell whenever it attacks, but it'll also cast a copy of it on itself. So for example, if it attacks, it could give you a deep blue and then cast a deep blue on itself. And then you've got another deep blue to use later.
Okay, I see that Wind Fury is back. Will it Wind Fury itself and then attack again?
It can do that. So if it attacks, it could cast Wave Rider's spellcraft on itself, get Wind Fury, attack a second time, trigger again. So that can definitely be very powerful. There's also the Sunken Advocate, which will give your other Naga +1 attack permanently. But this is improved for each spell you cast this turn. So if you cast like 5 spells, it'll give, I guess that's +6 attack permanently. And you can also give that Wind Fury, so that it'll give +6 twice. And also if you have a huge pop-off turn where you could play like 10, 20, 30 spells, this could be very powerful.
With Wind Fury.
Exactly.
And then, okay,
You
so
can also throw Divine Shield, which will help it a lot.
yeah, what I see here is if you have a Lava Lurker start where your board is mainly Naga, this is such a really good card to get early on tier 4.
This can work really well together.
Okay, I can see that. I also see that there's the Deep Blues. to be clear, you're casting the deep blues in the combat, but the deep blue buffs aren't permanent, but your deep blue does get bigger permanently.
Yes.
Okay.
There are ways that you could like shenanigan your way to getting a permanent, something like an amalgam,
Sure.
a poet, you
Yeah.
could. But for the most part, it's going to be temporary. But the improvements to your deep blows are permanent.
That's really fun.
So here's an example of what you could do. You could throw the Wind Fury spell on your rally minions, so they're going to be able to do their extra attacks. We also have another Time Warp card here, which is Time Warp Chameleon, which isn't technically a Naga, but it can be very good. It will transform at start of combat into a copy of the minion to the left of this. So if you've got a golden bluesy siren, you can get another golden
start of
bluesy siren.
combat.
And then each time you attack, you're going to cast 2 deep blues each. So that's 4 deep blues each attack. And if you put Wind Fury, then that's 8. And it can be very strong, very fast.
Okay, I can see how this works.
Yeah.
This is really good.
So there's definitely a really powerful thing you can do. This is in addition to just using Deep Blue as a normal spell. You know, a Deep Blue career is still in the pool. You can still do like the zesty bounce stuff. So you still can have access to it this way. This is just another end game way that you could take that Deep Blue comp.
That is really smooth because right now Deep Blue endgame is a little janky where you basically just roll for more zesty, and this is just such a natural extension of that composition.
And it works really well with a lot of the keywords. Like it works with the Wind Fury keyword you can give, works really well with Divine Shield keyword you can give. So there's a lot of ways that you can like make sure that your Naga's more likely to survive the hit or possibly get multiple hits to really get that payoff.
Okay, Mitchell, all these look so exciting. I can't wait to try all this. What's our next type?
The next type we're going to talk about is Pirates. And Pirates theme is all around coins. So there's actually one little change that we've made is anything in the game that right now generates a coin, they're going to be generating tavern coins. So that gives you a little bit of extra energy to spells, especially because we have a lot of stuff that pays off casting tavern spells.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a lot of different ways to generate coins in Pirates. So you've got something like the Tier 1 Minted Corsair that when you sell it, you get a coin. Great economy. Economy cards on Tier 1 are always really powerful.
Yeah.
You've got Underhanded Dealer coming back as an easy payoff for some of that gold you're generating.
On Tier 3.
On Tier 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you've also got a big capstone with Cannon Corsair, which is after you gain gold, you give your pirates +1/+2.
Just to be clear, after you gain gold, that means every minion I sell triggers this?
Yep. Every minion you sell, any coin you play, as well as like refreshing gold at the start of your turn, all of those are going to count.
Okay.
There's lots of different ways that you can generate coins, obviously off of individual minions, but you can also use the new Industrious Deckhand, which at the start of turn is going to give you some coins. Very powerful as a Tier 4 card. That's a lot of economy. You can use that both for the effects as well as to like buy more minions or tier up faster, whatever you want to do.
Feels a little bit like Looter right now, where you get it, end of turn, get you some value, you can level fast.
Yeah, and it can work really well. And then you've got some payoffs for the gold, such as the Visionary Shipman, which is after you gain gold 5 times, you're going to get a random tavern spell. So each of those coin casts are going to work, selling minions are going to work. It's another payoff. And then since all these are tavern spells, you can also tap into that tavern spell synergy with something like Plankwalker, which is whenever you cast a tavern spell, you're going to give 3 friendly minions +2/+1. You might notice Plankwalker's also undead. We also have some tavern spell stuff in undead that we're going to get to later.
Okay.
But both types can take advantage of this.
I can already see with Shipment if you have 2 golden ones, where they just give you money and then you keep going and they give more money. And
it can work really well. So we've actually got a little clip to show an example. So you can start your turn. As you can see, your hand is full of coins because you got 2 of these golden Industrious Deck hands. So you just start your turn with 4 extra gold twice, so 8 extra gold. They're already in a pretty great spot. So you can combine that with the Visionary Shipman. You can have something like a Peggy in play so that all that coins you're adding work. You can use it with the new Tier 6. You can use it with the Plankwalkers. Lots of different ways to pay off those coins, as well as just getting gold is already a payoff, so they're very powerful.
Mitchell, I have to say, I see Boat.
That is in fact Boat. Yep, that's Boat.
Boat is back.
So Boat is back. This is actually a Time Warp version of Boat, and what this one will do when it dies, if I remember correctly, it will summon and get 3 random pirates, so it's also economy.
Okay.
But you could also luck into some really cool things. It's probably, the tempo part is likely not quite as powerful as it was in the past, because you don't have things like Eliza that helped it a lot, but the economy side of it is very strong.
Okay, so you mentioned Undead also do stuff with spells. I'm assuming that's your next
let's
step.
jump into them right now.
Okay.
So for Undead, like I mentioned, there's a bit of a tavern spell theme in them as well. So you obviously have the Plankwalker we just talked about. You've also got Spellbound Soul, which has +2/+1 for each tavern spell you cast this game wherever it is. So if you give it Reborn, it'll come back and still have those spell buffs.
That's like Fungus in the
Yeah,
past.
exactly.
Okay.
It's like Fungus, except it's undead, and you give it Reborn.
Yeah.
A lot better.
Okay, yes, that is a lot better.
You've got something like the Spirit Drake, which is a dual type with dragons. There's eventually you get a random tavern spell. This can also work with the dragon comp if you want to do some tavern spell stuff there. Works well with the whelps. As well as we've got a new tavern spell available to them, which is Tomb Turning, which is Discover an Undead. It dies if you play it this turn. So there's a lot of interesting synergies you can do with that because we already have a little bit of Destroy Undead during the shot phase. But for this one, you could use it to discover something with a powerful death rattle, get that effect right away. Yeah. Or you could use it to turn into a minion that you actually want and you don't want to die. You could hold it for a turn and use it next turn.
Okay. What happens when I triple with this?
Great question. If you triple with it, the first time, it used to make it that the minion you play would also die.
I was afraid of that.
And people got very sad. So we've added a little thing that if you triple into a golden, it will remove the dying
That's
parts.
a great decision.
Because it only took one game to realize that this is going to make people really sad.
Okay.
So here's an example of a fun synergy you could do with Tomb Turning. You could get yourself a Cadaver Caretaker, which is Death Rattle summon 3 1/1s. You could then play it to immediately die and give you a triple reward. But if you combine it with something like Timewarped Bomber, the first minion you play each turn gains Reborn. So you could play it, give Reborn, you still get to keep the minion, and you now get a free triple reward.
And Grave Robber is still in, so you can combo that with that.
Yeah, there's some combinations you could do.
Okay. No, that's so much value.
Yeah.
What's like the best death rattle that you can trigger straight away?
I think probably the Econ angle is really good. You could combine this with something like Catacomb Crasher is another way to be able to get a lot of stats out of it, which could be really useful. So I'd say probably the ones that summon are good, but there's also the minion that Death Rattle gives you another Tomb Tampering, so you could chain those and get a lot of them to die.
Yes.
So there's some fun shenanigans.
So if I have Titus and Catacomb and my board is full and I just play it, it's just...
Yep, exactly.
Okay, that's a lot of stats.
So those are all the different main types. We also have some neutrals that we're going to touch on now.
Okay.
We actually don't have a ton of neutrals, but there's a couple cards that I think are worth highlighting. So one is Worgen Executive. This one is Rally. After the Tavern has refreshed this game, give its rightmost minion +1/+1. The rightmost theme is mostly in elementals, but we wanted to splash it around a little bit. So there's a neutral minion. There's the Quillboar that will play Blood Gems on the rightmost minion. There's an Undead that will give Reborn to the rightmost minion. There's a Mech that will give Divine Shield to the rightmost minion. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of like key into this, even if you aren't playing elementals.
You can splash one of those cards and then get the value.
And those ones are also really nice because you can end up with keywords on stuff that normally wouldn't have it, or extra stats on stuff that normally wouldn't be that big.
And for the refresh mechanic, that means that when I start my turn and the tavern is refreshed, even though I haven't rolled yet, it works.
Yep, that would count. Okay. Yeah. As long as you have enough cards, you've bought enough previously that when you freeze, it will be a refresh.
Yeah, it will be a refresh.
If you like freeze a full shop, it wouldn't count.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We also have Heroic Underdog. This is a tech card that you can use. It's got Stealth, but then Rally, it gains the target's attack. Now this is extremely powerful if you can give it Wind Fury or Divine Shield, so Alakir is going to love this card.
Yes.
But it's a really good way to be able to try and catch up if you notice an opponent who has a really big taunt minion. This could be a way to cut through it.
It seems like a great unit to just be strong immediately, but it's not really going to build into anything, so that's really well balanced where you can catch up, but it's not like, oh, now I just have this build online and I don't have to do anything anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And then we also have a new Tier 6 minion that will get you a Tier 5 minion when you play it. And this is just to give you a nice, easy economy card. One of the things that we will try to do is when we're designing Tier 6 minions, we want to have some minions that are like capstones. These are like big, cool, fancy cards that are meant to be a final part of your strategy. But sometimes you just triple into a 6 and you just need some tempo or you just need some value, and these can be good cards for those situations where you can get something out of it without it necessarily having to define your entire comp.
Yeah, I mean, you had me a battle cry. This works with Brand.
Oh no, it's great with Brand, and it can get you more brands.
Oh, that's true. Well, Mitchell, that was so much. Now, I know that every season you guys say that this is the biggest Battlegrounds patch we've ever done, but I think you've done it again.
Yeah, but there's a lot of cards in this set.
Okay, so where do we go if we want to just digest everything we talked about here today and see all the cards we haven't even discussed?
Yeah, so if you want to go find all of this new content, you can check it out all on the Play Hearthstone website. We've got some blogs talking about the Timewarped Tavern, as well as the card library that will be updated right after this stream, where you'll be able to look through all of the cards that we talked about today, as well as the ones we didn't get a chance to highlight.
And the most important question, when do I get to play this?
That is the most important question. So this is going live tomorrow, December 2nd. So we're really excited for everyone to be able to play with this, and we're really looking forward to you all getting to experience the Timewarped Tavern. I think that's basically it we got for today. Shady, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
If you just look on YouTube for Shadybunny, if you're ever looking for more Hearthstone Battlegrounds content, that's where you'll find me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the tavern.